My favorite wormhole in all of sci-fi is in Thor Ragnarok.
That is a pretty excellent one, yeah.
Yeah, and it's called
It's something anus, isn't it?
The Devil's Anus. Yes.
That's what it's called. Thank you. Welcome to Electric Enthusiasm, the podcast where we celebrate unironic enthusiasm. It's a new year, but it's the same old me, Katie Cobalt. It's the first episode of the year.
There you go. And I am Alexander Kjolf, and I just wish I could be a part of the universe that we're going to talk about today, because it is amazing.
And I know genuinely nothing about it. So, Alex, please tell me how this works.
In each episode, one of us is going to present a topic that they love, but that the other one knows little or nothing about, as in this case, and will then try their hardest to spread that enthusiasm to the other host and to you, the listener. Occasionally, we'll have guests on who are super excited about something that we know literally nothing about.
And then we have the moment of meta, where we get enthusiastic about enthusiasm and talk a little bit about why enthusiasm matters and how to live a more enthusiastic life.
Because here's the thing, the world needs more enthusiasm. And you should share yours. You should share yours with us on our website, electricenthusiasm.com, or our Instagram, @electricenthusiasm. Tell us all about what you're excited about these days. You could even plain old send us an email at hello@electricenthusiasm.com.
The .com always sounds really American to me.
Yeah,
I don't know why. Like, it doesn't matter which one of us says it. It always sounds so American.
.com.
1-800-ELECTRIC-ENTHUSIASM.
Yes. In this episode, our topic is Vorkosigan, and you basically know nothing, right?
Never seen the word. I didn't know how to pronounce it. I'm so glad you said it first. I was genuinely scared you were going to ask me to try and pronounce it on camera, and I was like, no.
Yeah.
So we like to start with the facts first. I need a lot of help here, man. So can you please tell me, what exactly do I need to know about Vorkosigan?
Vorkosigan. There's a G in Vorkosigan. Yeah, very good.
Vorkosigan.
Yes, excellent pronunciation.
You never know which letters you need to pronounce in a word, though. I've learned this from you when you talk about Danish. You never know.
You never know. Yeah. In my opinion, one of the great pleasures in life is to discover a new writer, and especially to discover a new writer who has already published a ton of great books. And that is the pleasure that I'm going to inflict on you and everybody listening today. Because Vorkosigan, or the Vorkosigan Saga, is a series of science fiction books by the American writer Lois McMaster Bujold. It's a fairly long series, and it is simply amazing. Lois McMaster Bujold started writing fanfic in the 60s, but she started writing seriously in the 80s. I found an interview where the interviewer asks her, "So what motivated you to write your first book?" And she goes, "Well, poverty mostly." She was a single mom with 2 kids and no job, and that's how she got into writing sci-fi. Her first book gets picked up by Baen, the science fiction publisher, and then from there she just took off, and she has won a lot of the major science fiction awards, including the Hugo and the Nebula.
I'm still stuck on the fact. I'm sorry, this is like the first fact you dropped, and I'm still stuck on it. There was fanfic in the 60s?
Apparently there was, yeah.
Do you know where she published it?
She did not publish. She wrote it with a friend, and they sent it to each other back and forth.
Aww.
Yeah.
That's adorable. Okay, cool. So, because in my head, fanfic is like forums, it's internet, it's very modern. I guess that makes sense. People love writing their own stories, and it's wonderful to use characters that you already love. That makes sense. But also, I'm very surprised.
Yeah. But it also shows that she just has a love of writing, because she wrote for no money, and then she could apply that to actually make a living. Can I set the scene a little bit and tell you where these books are set? Okay, so
yes, please.
We're hundreds of years in the future, and humans have colonized the galaxy. This is a little like the setup for Dune or a lot of other sci-fi. And here's the thing, though. When humans are all across the galaxy, one thing you have to figure out as a writer is, how do people get around? Because, the galaxy is pretty big. You can introduce faster than light travel. And generally, authors do that in 2 ways. You can either have like a hyperdrive. This is what they have in Star Wars. There's the warp drive in Star Trek, that kind of thing.
And then Spaceballs, obviously, the most
Spaceball,
important sci-fi of them all.
obviously. Yeah, where they go to ludicrous speed, right?
I'm so glad you got that reference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so either you can have like a warp drive so the ship can travel really fast, or you can have wormholes. So you go
Yeah.
somewhere and there's a wormhole you can tunnel through to somewhere else. That's what they had in Stargate or The Expanse. I think my favorite wormhole in all of sci-fi is in Thor Ragnarok.
That is a pretty excellent one, yeah.
Yeah, and it's called
It's something anus, isn't it?
The Devil's Anus. Yes.
That's what it's called. Thank you.
Maybe the most creative form of faster than light travel was in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series. Have you read those at all?
Oh, I saw the film and I read some of the first book. It's like the impossibility drive, the improbability
Mm.
drive, where you go through all the improbable options in the world and then you end up hopefully where you're supposed to end up.
Yes, that one is pretty cool. But in the fourth book in the trilogy, because this is a trilogy of 5 books, yeah,
A trilogy of 5
yeah,
books.
the as he calls it, the increasingly inaccurately named Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy trilogy.
That's very on brand for Douglas Adams.
Exactly. So in the fourth one, called Mostly Harmless, there's an even cooler faster than light mechanism. It's a ship powered by bad news.
We need that in this universe. It would go forever. Oh my
Yes,
god.
yes, exactly. And nothing travels faster than bad news, as we all know. Uh,
Yep.
yeah, they had to abandon it though, because the problem is that whenever they arrived anywhere, they were never welcome.
I do love Douglas Adams.
Yeah, he was hilarious.
How did they solve the traveling issue in the Vorkosigan novels?
Vorkosigan.
Vorkosigan. Vorkosigan. I
Yeah,
just it's such a weird word to my brain. It doesn't work. But
I know.
how did she solve the problem? How did she do it?
Wormholes, and that's actually crucial to the story. Because here's the
Mhm.
thing: these wormholes are naturally occurring. You can discover them. You can try to travel through them, see where they go, and maybe they go to another solar system, planet, or one you can terraform so it becomes habitable. And some settlers went through a wormhole to a planet called Barayar, and there's only one wormhole leading there, and they've just settled on the planet, and then that wormhole collapses. Suddenly, they're isolated from the rest of the galaxy. This leads to the time of isolation for hundreds of years. This planet is now all alone, has no access to all of the resources in the galaxy, and they basically backslide into a primitive feudal society. Instead of laser guns, they have swords. Instead of cars, they have horses. Instead of democracy, they have 60 districts that each has a count, and then an emperor
Mm.
leading the whole thing. It's a really cool setup. This society, it's feudal, it's patriarchal, it's militaristic, and it's plagued by a deep-seated fear of mutation because the local biosphere is affecting the humans so that a lot of children are born with various mutations.
Mm.
Yeah, so really tough times. Then one day, the galaxy discovers a new wormhole that leads to Barayar, and the planet gets to rejoin a now much more developed and progressive human society.
Did they evolve differently? Did like the people on Barayara did they That's so cool.
No,
Sorry.
they're still.
Listeners to the podcast, Alex just nodded.
Well, no,
Sagely and wisely.
yes, that was a good question. Not, they did not. They're still fundamentally, basically human, but their society definitely evolved, or you could say devolved, into
Mm, mm,
something
mm,
way
mm.
more primitive and masculine and hierarchical, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. In this galaxy, we also have a lot of other cool worlds that we get to discover throughout the series. There's a Jackson's Hole, which is basically an anarcho-capitalist nightmare run by literal robber barons.
That's just Earth. That's just late stage capitalism. That's just where we are now. I'm sorry.
That is basically where we're going. And actually, those stories where this planet occurs has some really good criticisms of neo-capitalism. Yeah, it's great. There's an empire called Setaganda. It's an entire society based on a hierarchy of genetic manipulation. Those are somewhat less recognizably human. My favorite is a planet called Beta, which is a peaceful, politically progressive planet, also very scientifically advanced. And one reviewer called it basically Copenhagen in space.
Yay!
So that's the setting, and then we have our main character, Miles Vorkosigan. Vorkosigan is his last name. He is the only child of Count Errol Vorkosigan and his wife Cordelia. And here's the thing: while Cordelia is pregnant with Miles, some of Errol's political rivals try to assassinate her with a poison gas attack. She survives, but it means that Miles is born with brittle bones. He needs constant, painful medical treatments as a child, and he only grows up to be a little over 4 feet tall. And this is in a society that values strength and masculinity and military service above all, and also a society that fears and abhors mutations of any kind.
Mm.
There is a quote that I'm going to make you read from the second book. This is Miles's mother, Cordelia, who says this to her son right after he's born, sort of as a benediction and a warning.
Okay. Welcome to Barayar, son. Here you go. Have a world of wealth and poverty, retching change and rooted history. Have a name. Miles means soldier, but don't let the power of suggestion overwhelm you. Have a twisted form in a society that loathes and fears the mutations that have been its deepest agony. Have a title, wealth, power, and all the hatred and envy they will draw. Have your body ripped apart and rearranged. Inherit an array of friends and enemies you never made. Endure pain, find joy, and make your own meaning, because the universe certainly isn't going to supply it. Always be a moving target. Live, live, live. That is so beautifully written.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
That's really beautiful. I really like the way the writing is done. And also this idea of like, don't let the power of suggestion overwhelm you, like the concept of normative determinism coming in there. Oof, yes. I love this. This is fabulous. Also,
Yes.
I'm starting to see a pattern in the sci-fi that you like. You like the son of the powerful people who revolutionizes the world. I feel like that's your vibe.
That's a good trope
Yeah.
right there. Yeah, definitely. This story definitely uses that trope, but also subverts it
Mm,
because Miles is who he is. And he
yeah.
is not the 6.5 foot tall, powerful soldier. He's quite the opposite. And that really
Yeah.
shapes the stories.
So, aside from it being very similar to Dune, why did you pick? No, I won't. Why did you pick this topic, Alex?
Well, because these books are amazing. They are so good. This is in some ways the anti-Dune, right?
Mm.
Because Dune has one great book and the rest of the series is crap. In this case, all of the books are great. And also, these books are a lot easier to read. We talked about how in the Dune episode, how Dune is a tough read. It's not easy to get through. These books are a joy to read. They're excellent. And they have a lot better values. The value system that these books promotes is way more progressive and healthier than what Dune promotes. And we're going to talk about that a little bit because there are 6 reasons why I picked this series of books to talk about. You want to hear them?
Yes, please. Also, you realize that this is the way to sell me on a book. Like, if you want me to read the book, I like an easy read and I like something that is not going to make me feel bad. Like progressive values where the world is hopefully changing to the better. This is what I want in my life. I have enough like horror and reality.
I know my audience by now, Katie. I know how to hook you.
Give me a progressive storyline. I'm a terrible
Yes.
lefty.
Yes. So, 6 reasons why these books are amazing. Reason number 1, every book is different. The first books in this series are straight up military sci-fi. They have
Mm-hmm.
spaceship battles, laser guns, clones, space marines, genetically engineered super soldiers, but they're always believable, exciting, and funny. Then they start to change, and some of them become more like political thrillers. One of the stories is a prison break. The later stories are more like detective mysteries, like whodunit mysteries.
Yeah.
And my favorite book in this series, which is this one, A Civil Campaign. This is a straight up rom com. I'm not even kidding. It's a romantic comedy with political intrigue thrown in. It
Mm.
is so good. We're going to talk a little bit more about this book because it's so good.
Do you have to read the whole series to understand it, or can you jump in anywhere?
We're going to talk about that at the end, because there are like two places. There are technically three places you could jump in. You do not have to read the whole thing.
I'm interested. You can tell.
Yeah. So every book is different, and they're incredibly creative. Reason number two,
Number two.
tough themes. These books are great. They're fun to read, but they're not afraid to deal with some really, really tough themes. Some of the themes are sexism, homophobia, transphobia, sexual abuse, mental trauma, depression, and grief. It's about these characters, how they face it and how they overcome it. But it's never trivialized. The cost of what they go through, all these characters, is always very, very clear. So
Mhm.
that makes these books so much more interesting than a lot of sci-fi, which is about the science aspect,
Yeah.
where these books are very much about the human characters in this sci-fi universe. That makes the books amazing.
That's my jam. That's my jam.
Yeah.
Human relationships are always so much more interesting than spaceships to me. I'm sorry.
Right. Right.
I want human relationships in spaceships.
Exactly. Number three, strong women characters. Yes. Miles and his parents are trying to progress society, trying to develop our own society to value women more. There's his mother, Cordelia, is amazing, such a smart mind. He ends up as the admiral of a mercenary space fleet. So cool. And yeah, and his second in command, Ellie Quinn, who ends up later in the later book becoming the admiral of the whole fleet. She's a complete badass. She's this trash talking soldier, always cursing people out. She's, as you know, way more of a badass than Miles, our main character, is. There is Tora, the genetically engineered super soldier, 7.5 feet tall, with like a face like a wolf, because somebody thought that would be a good idea for soldiers. Yeah, uh,
Sure.
yeah,
Why
exactly.
not?
Miles actually ends up having a long-term love affair, a relationship with her throughout the books. Yeah, I know, right?
Aw.
Yeah,
Because even wolf faces deserve love.
yeah, exactly, exactly, exactly. So tons of strong women throughout these books. Reason number four, disability representation. You don't see disabled people represented a lot in popular media. Our main character here has some physical challenges. He's small and physically weak, but he makes it because he's smart, creative, and just understands people. He is basically everything that Tyrion Lannister was at the beginning of Game of Thrones.
Where's your little counter of how many times we trash talk Game of Thrones?
That we're gonna knock that back to zero. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. A character who has to survive on his wits and his smarts, right? He can't do it on physical power, physical strength,
Yeah.
and that makes him really, really interesting. There's another quote that I'm gonna make you read. This is from a novella called Labyrinth, which I think sums this up pretty well.
Don't wish to be normal. Wish to be yourself to the hilt. Find out what you're best at and develop it, and hopscotch your weaknesses. Wish to be great at whatever you are. That is so wonderful. I was having a conversation with some of my drag family here about this idea of self love. And we decided that the idea of self love is to just figure out who you are and do that. That for us is like the ultimate expression of self love. And self care is great, like take a bubble bath, yeah, whatever. But also, like, look inward, figure out who you are, and then just go for it. Don't wish to be normal, wish to be yourself. I love that. I love that so
Yes.
much.
In a lot of ways, that is the story of Miles throughout these books, is
Mhm.
him coming to terms with who he is and accepting himself and his good sides and also his flaws and weaknesses. It's beautifully described, and I completely agree. I think you can make yourself super miserable by trying to be something you're not,
Yeah.
by trying to emulate others instead of just trying to be yourself.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
Hmm.
Also, hopscotch your weaknesses. That's just a really great visual image.
Yes, yes. It is very rare to have a main character who is disabled in some way. It's just good to see it here. So that's reason number four. And in addition to the disability representation, we have great LGBT representation.
What's up?
I know, right? Do I know my audience or what? One of my favorite recurring characters in the whole series is Bill Thorne. who is a captain of one of the ships in this mercenary space fleet. Belle Thorne is a hermaphrodite.
Okay.
Yeah. They are from the planet Beta, very scientifically advanced, and their race of hermaphrodites was created at some point, and Belle is one of them. Very androgynous, can present as a man or a woman, depending on what they want. And this is from some of the books written back in the 80s. This is from
Yeah.
way before the current conversation on trans visibility and pronouns and trans rights.
Anytime anyone comes at me with the whole like they them isn't grammatically correct, I always have to remind them that Shakespeare used they them pronouns. Thank you very much.
Yes. And Belle is just such a cool character. This really satirical wit, always super funny. Another example is Miles's dad, Aral Vorkosigan, the famous count. He becomes prime minister of the whole planet of Barayar. Barayaran society is incredibly homophobic. But it turns out that he is bisexual. And
Hey.
he and Miles's mom, Cordelia, have been living in basically in a throuple, in a long-term free-person relationship with one of his officers, a man called Joel. Actually, it's hinted at somewhat throughout the books, and then in one of the later books, it's revealed, yeah, we had this, and Miles is like, oh my god, don't tell me. But he deals with it fairly well. But again, the famous warrior, the famous admiral Arl Vorkosigan, turns out to have been bisexual all along.
Yeah, and also clearly good at communication. Long-term polyamorous relationships are really hard to maintain.
Yeah.
So clearly is good at communication and relationships.
Yes. That will probably have been down to Miles's mom, Cordelia. She has that. She's from Beta. Betans are just very cool about sexual relationships. She would have been the one who
Assisted and helped grow.
exactly. There are tons of examples of this, but the final one I want to mention is from my favorite book, A Civil Campaign. That's the rom-com. I'm gonna give a minor spoiler for this book, right? Because
Okay.
it's such a cool story. One of the counts dies. This is Count Vorrutcher of the Vorrutcher district.
Mhm.
And now somebody male has to succeed him as the new count of this district. Yeah, he doesn't have any kids. If he had a brother, it would go to him. He doesn't have a sister, but he does have a cousin, Pierre Vorrutcher. But this guy is a complete dick. Nobody wants him to take over leadership of the district. So Pierre's sister, Donna, comes up with a plan. She goes to Beta and has a sex change operation and comes back to Barayar as Dono Vorrutcher, not Donna, Dono,
Yeah.
as a man. And he is now faced with a ton of transphobia from the traditional patriarchal society. Everybody's like,
Yeah.
well, he's not a real man. Still calling him she, still dead naming him, calling him Donna. Whereas our main character, Miles, is totally invested in helping Dono become the new count because he's way
Yeah.
more progressive than Pierre would be as the new count.
I'm curious, did Donna have the gender confirmation surgery because they internally felt like a man, or was it like, I need to take over because this guy's a dick? Like, what was the motivation for the character changing gender? I'm very curious.
Yeah, that's a good question. It was to become the count.
Okay.
And only a man, as Barriar currently stands, only a man can be a count. But
Okay.
there is the point where somebody asks him, so if you don't get the countship, are you going to go back? And then he goes, no, I am actually enjoying the view from the top of the food chain.
Oh. Ah!
Yeah,
This is for me evidence why being trans is not a choice. Imagine you're a white guy and you're like, "No, I'm not enjoying being top food chain. I want to be a woman." No one
no.
chooses this. It's inherent. Except for Dono. Dono chose this and Dono enjoys the choice that they have made.
Yes. Obviously, the situation for him is a lot different from what most trans people
Mm,
would experience.
yeah.
But the reaction from the society that he's in would be very similar and
Yeah.
is very similar. And you see a lot of the same transphobic tropes in this book. And this book is from 1999.
Whoa.
Yes, this is way ahead of the curve.
I was
Uh,
7.
I was somewhat older. So There's phenomenal LGBT representation in these books, and it's very enlightened, very progressive, and I love that about them.
How does the author identify?
She is cishet. You know, you see interviews with her on YouTube, and she's like somebody's grandma. It just looks like.
Is she like a cool grandma, or is she just like straight up grandma?
Definitely the coolest grandma you can imagine. She does not look like this hardcore science fiction writer at all. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Sci-fi grandma. I'm here for it.
Exactly. Sixth and final reason why these books are amazing is just the characters. We first meet Miles when he's 17. And in the latest book, he's in his 40s. And he goes, and he goes through tremendous growth throughout these books. Also, he is not your perfect hero. He's flawed in so many ways. He has a massive need for validation. He can be incredibly manipulative. He can be very obsessive and hyperactive. And he also has these depressive episodes, almost to the point of being suicidal. So Miles is a fascinating, complex, deep, and super interesting character. But then beyond him, there's just a huge cast of characters throughout all of the books. His family, his friends, his enemies, his soldiers, all of these people are just described so well, and each of them get arcs and growth and development of their own. There's no doubt that Lois McMaster Bujold's writing is very character-driven. Here's a quote from her on that.
What happens sometimes is that my characters go on a sit-down strike. If I try to push them in a direction that's not right for them, the story kind of grinds to a halt and I'm blocked. I really like this style of writing. So I think, not to like continually name and shame GGRM and Game of Thrones, but this is something that is talked about in his books as well. He thinks about writing as like gardener, like you plant the seeds and you see where it grows. And you can't ask a peach tree to stop being a peach tree, right? It's going to be a peach tree. You got to let it grow where it's going to grow. And I love it when writers are able to create characters that are so real and so fully realized in their own universe that they stop you from doing dumb things.
Yeah.
And really, it's a lesson that the producers of the Game of Thrones TV series could have learned. Like, you can't, like, if the characters would be weird if they did that, you shouldn't do that. Yeah. And I really appreciate Lewis for not making her characters do things that doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
I appreciate that deeply.
Exactly. Maybe not have one of your strong female characters go on a murderous, genocidal spree, right?
Maybe smartest character in the series should know not to hide in the crypt if the dead are coming to kill you. I figured once we've like started bashing Game of Thrones, we might as well just go all in.
Keep it going.
Like we've already we've lost the count for this episode anyway, so we might as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's the thing: a lot of science fiction is driven by the tech. Right? A writer might say, oh my God, this technology, what would a society look like if we had that? But Lois McMaster Bujold goes the other way. The way she comes up with a new story is you pick a character and then asking herself, what is the worst thing I could do to this character? Yeah.
Harsh. Okay.
Yeah. And out of that comes great stories that are character driven, not tech driven, as a lot of sci-fi is. And I think that makes them amazing. And I cannot tell you how fulfilling it is to follow Miles and his growth and his challenges and his development, and how different he is from the first novel we see him in to the last, but how believable that growth is and how satisfying it is.
Question. You keep saying first, last.
Yeah.
You haven't said how many books there are, and it starts when he's 17 and ends when he's 40.
Yes.
Alex.
Yeah.
How many books are there in this series?
I'm glad you asked, Katie. Let me ask you, what's the longest series of books you've read?
Probably a trilogy. Oh, Harry Potter. Harry Potter is probably
Harry
longest.
Potter. Yeah, it's like seven,
8 books. Yeah,
7 books, 8 movies.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So I researched what's the longest running sci-fi series, and as you can probably imagine, that's a hotly debated topic on the internet.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's probably like I'd probably say like hundreds of books. I'm sure there's like series that have gone on where they have really prolific authors or multiple authors writing for the same series.
Yes, because then that becomes the debate, right? Is it a series if
Yeah.
it's different authors? Is it a series if it's the same world but different characters? Some of the long-running ones are like Discworld by Terry Pratchett.
Yeah.
That's
That's what I was thinking.
45 books, but again, same world, not the same characters. I discovered this researching this episode. The single longest running sci-fi is German. And it's called,
Oh.
yeah, I did not know that. And it's called Perry Roden, a serial novella published weekly in Germany since 1961.
Whoa. Same author? Different
No,
authors.
different authors.
Okay.
Yes, it's published weekly in these 60-page booklets, and they've now published 3,000 booklet novels of the original series. They've published 400 paperback books, and they're now up to over 300,000 pages and a print run of more than 1 billion copies.
Whoa,
That's
that's
insane.
insane.
Yeah.
I feel like you're setting up this perspective so that when you say there's like 50 books in this series, I'm not so freaked out.
Yeah, no, it's there are 17 books in the series.
Okay, see, this I think if you started with 17, I would have been like, dude, what? But because you're like, hey, there's not 3,000 pages. It's not so bad.
Yeah. There are 17 books in the series. 11 of them feature Miles as the main character, and 6 of them feature other characters like his mother, his cousin Ivan, Ellie Quinn, the amazing space marine that I talked about.
As everything in our world is flawed or problematic in some way.
Yeah.
Alex, how is this particular book series flawed?
Here's the thing. It's not. It is
What?
honestly not. I can't put my finger on one thing in any of these books where I'm like, this is problematic, this is bad, she should change this. And there's nothing in her. She's just this nice person. She enjoys writing, and she wants people to enjoy reading. We talked about Dune and Frank Herbert. He was an asshole, basically, and a
Yeah.
terrible dad. Lois McMaster Bujold is just kind and pleasant and fun. There's a quote I want to make you read on how she approaches writing.
To me, the value of fiction is in the joy it brings to its readers. For all of the varied values of joy and of readers that one can imagine. She does sound like a very nice sci-fi grandma.
Yes. She's nice to the fans. She interacts with them a lot. She gives great interviews. She's very open about her writing process. Yeah. She's written some fantasy as well. And right now she's doing a series called Penric the Sorcerer, a series of novellas that I really enjoy as well. But I think her masterpiece is absolutely the Vorkosigan series.
I've also just Google image searched her. I'm gonna downgrade her from grandma to auntie. She's definitely not grandma status yet. She is sci-fi auntie, but
Yeah.
she does have like a very warm vibe.
Yeah.
She has this really like soft wry smile. Yeah, I'm gonna auntie. She's only 72. Let's not give her grandma status yet.
That's very kind of you. We're gonna link to some interviews with her so you can see her for yourself.
Okay, so there's 17 books in this series. Where do I start? How can I jump in? Do I have to read all of them? Can I read some of them?
You can definitely read some of them. In the first 2 books in the series, the main character is Cordelia Vorkosigan, Miles' mom. And honestly, those 2 books are not very good. And Lois herself says that. She says, read those if you're terrified of spoilers or if you absolutely must start at the very beginning. So
Okay.
there are 2 places you could start. And one is this one, The Warriors Apprentice. And this is the first time we meet Miles as the main character. He's 17 and goes on this accidental adventure in space. It is phenomenal. From there, you could read all 11 novels with Miles as the main character. That would be an amazing way to do it. Alternatively, what you also could do is jump in at book number 5, which is Brothers in Arms, because this book kicks off an arc that goes on for 5 books, culminating in my favorite book, which is A Civil Campaign, the rom-com that I mentioned. So this book lays the foundation for the one called Mirror Dance, which is the darkest book in the series. It's amazing. and then it goes on from there, and then it culminates in a civil campaign. So either the Warriors Apprentice or Brothers in Arms would be a great place to start the series. That will be my recommendation for where to jump in.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, I'm glad I don't have to start, like, I don't know, like, even just skipping 2 books feels like it makes it less intimidating.
Yeah. Yes. Also, like we talked about with Modesty Blaze, this would be perfect for a TV series. I would kill for a TV series with Miles Vorkosigan as the main character. So, Katie, now you know all about the Vorkosigan universe and Miles Vorkosigan. What do you think?
I'm intrigued. I tried Dune. Dune is a bit too much for my ADHD brain.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry,
I get you. I
but
get you.
I am trying to get back into reading again because I'm one of those people that I find it really hard to start a book. But once I start a book, I'm very happy to finish it. If it feels like homework, I cannot. And this doesn't sound like it's going to be homework.
Not at all. These books are amazing. They're fun reads. They basically read themselves.
Which is more intriguing to me. So I think I will try and start with the 3rd book in the series,
Yep,
The
yep.
Warriors Apprentice.
Warriors Apprentice.
I think I'll start there and see how I go. And hopefully I'll be able to give you an update soon on how it's going. We shall see. We shall see.
Excellent.
I don't know why. I know nothing about Ellie Quinn, for the fact that they're a badass mercenary, but something about their name really vibes with me. And I'm like, I kind of want to meet Ellie Quinn.
She's so cool. So cool.
Something about her. I'm very intrigued. I'm very excited. So obviously I can go on to insert book retailer of my choice here and find the books. But what if I want to learn more about the series or about the author? What are you going to put in the show notes? What goodies have you got for us?
We have some great articles on the impact of the book series because it has inspired a lot of people. Again, I think because of the progressive values in it, and also interviews with McMaster Bujold, so you can learn a little bit about her writing process.
Is she from?
And she's American.
His name is very interesting.
Yeah, Bujold, right?
Yeah.
I like these books. Can you tell?
I don't know. Your enthusiasm's really not coming through in this episode. I think you forgot the name of this podcast, man.
Oh man, I'll try to up my enthusiasm for the next one.
Thank you.
Awesome. So, dear listeners, what do you think about the Vorkosigan universe and our main character, Miles Vorkosigan? Is he as intriguing to you as he is to me? Have you already read some of the books? Did I leave out something awesome about them or about him? Go to our website, electricenthusiasm.com, and tell us all about it.
Today's moment of meta is an extension of our classic rule number 1, don't yuck someone's yum.
Yes.
And this is about how you express your enthusiasm. So, for example, I, over our hiatus, watched the Disney film Encanto. Have you seen it?
I have not.
I love it. I love it a little bit too much, maybe. But I mean, it was. I don't think there was ever going to be a question if I was going to love it or not. First of all, it's a musical. Second of all, it's cultural. It's set in Colombia. Third, the music is by Lin-Manuel Miranda, and anybody who knows me knows I'm obsessed with Lin-Manuel Miranda. I can do pretty much all of Hamilton by myself at this point. And I just need to learn how to separate my voice to be able to do the choruses where everyone's rapping together. And so my expression of enthusiasm for Encanto is to play the soundtrack on repeat for weeks. Like, I haven't listened to, aside from like the jazz music I listen to do dancing stuff, I haven't listened to other music since I watched the film.
Wow.
Like, it is literally, there are 4 songs that I really, really, really love that I listen to, 5 songs that I like, just the 5 of them.
6 songs.
On loop.
7 songs. All of the songs.
But honestly, like, it brings me so much joy just to listen to them over and over and over again. And each time you listen to them, you hear another section or you have a new appreciation for one particular song that maybe you didn't like as much. And for me, that's fun. That's wonderful. That's exciting. And I recognize to my family, it's maddening. So I live with my parents at the moment, and I made them watch Encanto. So I watched it by myself, and then I made them watch it so they could understand why I was doing this to them.
Mm.
My father is so sweet. He gets it. He's just like, cool, you like this thing a lot. Put on headphones. But my mother is just going a bit bonkers, and I think it's hilarious. But my extension of this rule is, however you express your enthusiasm is great, is wonderful. And that's fine. And no one should get to judge you on how you show your enthusiasm, and vice versa. You don't get to judge others on how they show their enthusiasm.
Mm-hmm.
So, Alex, is there something you're very enthusiastic about that maybe the way you express it is somewhat annoying to those around you? Are you like me? Is there something you have that's like this?
So I don't think I've ever talked about it on this podcast before, but I do this thing called CrossFit.
You got me. I did not see that one coming.
I may have mentioned it once or twice. Some of our friends don't want to hear about it anymore. And it's not CrossFit, it's the C word. Because I have tended to go on and on, about this exercise or that movement or how much pain I'm in today or that kind of thing. So yeah, I definitely can fall into that. And what I try to remember sometimes is that in some instances, less is more. Maybe you could attract more people to the thing you're really enthusiastic about by sharing it a little less sometimes.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
But however you express it, it's so wonderful to hear how excited you are about that thing. As hilarious, to be honest, at this point, the CrossFit thing is just fucking hilarious to me.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Do you know the overlap between Encanto and CrossFit?
There's an overlap. What's the overlap?
I've not seen it, but I saw the trailer, and there's apparently one of the characters is a really strong woman.
Yes.
Louisa. And I saw a tweet from one of the people behind the movie, and apparently they had to fight Disney to put muscles on her.
Yeah.
The quote was like, "You would not believe how hard we had to fight to put muscles on this character," which I think is, first of all, great that they did, because women with muscles are amazing. And what the hell, Disney? What is wrong? Why would a strong woman not have muscles?
I feel like this is one of those things, like anytime a big media corporation gets quote unquote credit for, they had a gay representation, they had trans. No, someone behind the scenes fought tooth and nail for that representation.
And refused to give up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Also, Louisa is fully an icon in the lesbian community at the moment.
Yeah?
Like, there are so many memes about how fit she is and how hot she is. She is like lesbian thirst trap at this point.
I love it. I love it. That was the overlap between CrossFit and Encanto is muscles, and muscles are awesome.
Yep. And Louisa is awesome. She definitely could destroy you at CrossFit. She would easily.
I would, yeah.
She wouldn't even think twice. She can move churches. Like
that's pretty good. But also she is magical, right? They're magical. It's like doping, like performing. How would they test for that?
It's not steroids, it's miracles that she's on.
Yeah.
One of the things I do super love about Louisa's character, if we're gonna hang on to this a little bit longer, is that she's still really feminine in her muscularity and in her movement. Like, she's still clearly a girl, which I really like, because muscles are not an inherently masculine concept or a trait. Like, women can have muscles, and I love that they kept her quite feminine.
Yeah.
And she's also like a big squishy. You just want to hug her because she's just really sweet and lovely and caring, and she just wants to make everyone safe. And she likes unicorns and glitter, and
love that.
It's just hench as shit.
Love that. So this moment of meta was
instantly derailed.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Extension of the don't yuck someone else's yum rule is also how someone expresses their enthusiasm is always awesome.
Yes.
And you can express your enthusiasm by talking about CrossFit 24/7, and I can express it by listening to Encanto on repeat, those same 5 songs.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. And it's great.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't feel ashamed of how you express enthusiasm.
Abso-fucking-lutely.
Okay,
Beautiful.
I've noticed in our write-up here, you've written just the sentence, roasted potatoes.
Yes.
Tell me more.
So I wanted to follow up on our Christmas food episode where I talked about
the caramel potatoes.
Yes, so I talked about the Danish Christmas meal, which has two kinds of potatoes: the caramel potatoes and just normal, regular boiled potatoes. And I mentioned the boiled potatoes, and you went, that sucks. Roasted potatoes. And then as I was preparing the Christmas meal, I was like, you know what? Katie's right. We should have why follow tradition and do boiled potatoes when roasted potatoes are obviously so much more awesome. I made them and everybody loved them. So I just want to thank you because through one offhand remark, you improved our Christmas dinner by like a lot because those roasted potatoes are objectively better than boiled potatoes.
I'm happy to have helped.
Yes, and I've been serving those out of tradition, out of like, that's what we always do. And tradition is nice, but tradition is also a trap. It sometimes keeps you from doing things that are actually better. So thank you for improving our Christmas dinner, Katie.
I will say my Christmas dinner was highly entertaining. We had
who won the cook-off?
Well, my mom listens to this podcast, so I have to be careful what I say now. Because somebody made a comment about her chicken at Christmas dinner and almost got kicked out.
No.
I will say, I joined the fight on gravy. So I was in charge of making the vegetarian/vegan options for the day. So I made like a stuffed pumpkin for my vegan veggie friends, and my mom had not thought to make a gravy. So last minute, I made a vegan gravy. A vegan gravy is really hard to be delicious, but I had a couple tricks up my sleeves, and then it meant that I had joined the fight inadvertently as a last minute competitor. So I wasn't on the chicken battle, but there were 3 gravies on that table. So it was dangerous. I didn't realize I was going to be a competitor until the day of. Because, if you have roasted potatoes, you want to have a little bit of gravy.
Absolutely.
And if you're veggie vegan, you can't have the other gravies because they have, meat in them. I won the gravy cook-off.
No way. That's awesome.
Which I found hilarious because my brother had made a demi-glace, like a chicken demi-glace.
Yeah.
My mother had done a really traditional chicken gravy. I used a combination of Vegemite and like vegetable stock and like herbs. And I won. I'm very surprised. I beat the meat eaters.
That is awesome. Joined the fight by accident and then kicked their ass. Yeah. I love it. I
think it's because I won by like the demi-glace gravy for me was very bitter. Then my mother's gravy was slightly oversalted, and so I felt like I won just by having a very neutral classic gravy.
Got it.
And I feel like people like a classic gravy. Don't mess with the scents.
I still need to know. So you said there was going to be a cook-off on the chicken between your brother and your mother. So blink twice if your mother won, and blink once if your brother won.
I know she doesn't watch the YouTube videos. I can do this.
Got it.
That's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
And I will not. I mean, to be fair, like she can't kick me out, can she? It's cooking. Cooking is serious business. Yeah.
I know. Oh, that was amazing. Yep. So that was the follow-up on the Christmas dinner and how you improved ours and yours, apparently.
I'm so happy. Yes.
So, Katie, if somebody liked this episode, what other episode of ours do you think they'd also enjoy?
I feel like it's got to be Dune. It's gotta be Dune. It's like they have very similar vibes, but I feel like this is like a different version of it. But if you're looking for sci-fi literature review, which is apparently one of Alex's enthusiasms in this world, I think the Dune episode is a great place to go. What about you? Is there any other episodes you think that... I think Dune is the obvious choice. Is there a less obvious choice I'm not thinking of?
I think the Modesty Blaze one, because it's another series of books that are really fun, really well written, really exciting stories, but with excellent progressive values that should be made into a TV series, Netflix.
This makes me think that I could totally keep this train going, and next week I could do the Becky Chambers books, the Wayfarer series.
I love that.
Because I am obsessed with them.
I love that. How many books are in that series?
4 now.
That's nothing.
She did say she was going to stop after the 3rd. She wanted to be a trilogy, and then she wrote another book.
Well, like we talked about, The Hitchhiker's Galaxy is a trilogy of 5 books, so I don't see the problem.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Alrighty. So, dear listener, we hope you enjoyed sharing some of our enthusiasms in this episode. Please visit our website, electricenthusiasm.com, or find us on Instagram at Electric Enthusiasm to discover more episodes or to leave a comment.
And now, dear listeners, go out and hopscotch your weaknesses.